Hi everybody, Dugroz here with Dugroz Reports. Welcome to another episode of Frugal Points, the series where I drive in my car and talk to you about the philosophical side of points and miles. Today's topic is a thought exercise related to the new US Bank Smartly card. Not at the highest level, not at the drop in $100,000 with US Bank and get 4% cash back level, but at the first elevated level, the 2.5% cash back level, which requires you to have $5,000 on deposit with US Bank. Before I dive in though, on this channel I talk about finding epic value, including but not limited to credit card rewards for the average American. So if that sounds interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel and click the thumbs up button. Let's dive in. So we know with the US Bank Smartly card, from recent releases and the buzz around the community, I believe it just opened to new applications a week ago, as of the date I'm recording this. And you get 2% cash back on everything, and then depending on your overall relationship with US Bank, the total funds on deposit with US Bank impacts the bonus that you get. At the lowest level, deposit $5,000 and keep it, and you get 2.5% cash back on everything. Then jump up to $50,000, you get 3% cash back on everything. And if you jump it all the way up to $100,000 on file, you get 4% cash back on everything. Now, personally, I'm not able to dive in at the $100,000 level, not even the $50,000 level, really. Because I don't have that amount of cash on hand to drop in, at least not flexible cash, for reasons. The biggest reason among them being I've worked for the same company for 15 years, and the vast majority of my savings are in that company's 401k, which I cannot withdraw from without incurring major penalties until I either leave employment or retire, one of the two. So that's captive to that particular company that manages it. No problem. But I could wrangle up $5,000. You know, I could move an emergency fund over there, some non-qualified money market funds or something like that. Now, a discussion would probably be prudent of what the savings rates are at US Bank. I'm not going to get into that right now. One very brief glance I took is if you have at least $5,000 in a Smartly savings account, compared to other high yield savings accounts, it's not as good, but it's also not terrible. It's somewhere in between. I'm not going to take that into consideration. Let's just assume that it's a wash, but of course do your own research to see how much you'd be losing each year if you just dropped in $5,000. But let's just say you move in $5,000, drop it there, and you've got your 2.5% cash back on everything card. Uncapped, no limits. And what we're going to be comparing that to decide if it's worthwhile is any of the 2x points earning cards. And assuming you would have those anyway, so we're not going to factor in annual fee, because, you know, don't go out and get a Capital One Venture X just for the sake of this discussion, but let's say you already have one. We can compare it to the Venture X if you want to do Capital One miles, 2x on everything. We can compare it to the Wells Fargo Signify if you want to get Wells Fargo points. Wells Fargo also has the active cash, which you could use at 2x on everything. If you have either the autograph journey, or the grandfathered Visa signature card, you can move the points, your cash back over there in the form of points, and then use those points. If you like American Express, we could be talking the Blue Business Plus, 2 ultimate rewards on everything. Excuse me, that's a big faux pas. 2 membership rewards on everything. Even though Citi hates me and won't issue me a double cash, you could get a Citi Double Cash for 2x Citi points on everything. Chase is really the only loser, since their Ink Unlimited or Freedom Unlimited only does 1.5. So we're gonna exclude them. But other than Chase, whatever your favorite points earning ecosystem is, let's compare 2x in that ecosystem with 2.5% cash back. So what it all comes down to in terms of which is more lucrative is how much do you value your total point value at in those other ecosystems. Now, for me, I really like corn, but it also varies a lot. On one hand, in some cases, when it is appropriate or necessary, I'm willing to cash out penny points. So I'll cash out my AMEX points or my Chase points or my Wells Fargo points or my Citi points for a penny each, because my philosophy is I should never dip into my family budget to cover travel. Travel should pay for itself. I try to do that from things like bank account bonuses, but it doesn't always equal enough. So if I need to cash out Chase points, I will. On the other hand, I can use points for other things. For example, last summer, when we stayed at the Salamander Resort in Northern Virginia, for my Wells Fargo and Citi points, which I teamed up and sent over to Choice Hotels through their Preferred Hotels program, I got well over 3 cents per point. Although we're not thinking of Chase specifically, I got over 10 cents per point transferring Chase to Virgin Atlantic when I got a premium economy flight on Virgin not too long ago. Over 10 cents per point. That doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. I moved some of my Capital One, or maybe it was Citi points, I don't remember which, to Flying Blue back in late 2022 in anticipation of going to Europe in 2023. Got close to, but not quite 10 cents per points on some of those redemptions. I've had other times I've moved Citi to Choice and gotten 4 or 5 cents per point. It varies a lot. You know, you can send your money over to Hyatt and get more than that. I've done redemptions with British Airlines to buy domestic economy on American and gotten over 2 cents per point before. So it can vary anyway from 1 cent per point to 10 cents per point. However, there still has to be some sort of aggregate or some sort of average when it comes to these things. And although it's more of an art than a science, for the sake of my own tracking, I generally use an average for all ecosystems of somewhere around 1.5 cents per point. I think with Chase and Citi and Wells Fargo, I value it right at 1.5. I think I value AMEX just a little higher at 1.6. And Capital One just a little lower at 1.4 based on how I use it. That's probably nothing more than just a extremely conservative educated guess, but as a really conservative educated guess, I kind of like it. So I'm just going to say, for the sake of this discussion, 1.5 cents per point. Now, if my math serves me correctly, if you have a card like the Venture X, for example, or the Wells Fargo Signify, earning 2 points per dollar, and you value those points at 1.5 cents per point, well then, Jennifer Garner, you're not just getting double miles, but you're getting the equivalent value of 3% cash back every time you use one of those cards. This would be your everything else category, which is, of course, what you would use the Smartly card for anyway. You know, you wouldn't use your Smartly card at an office supply store if you can get 5 points per dollar there with Chase on your Ink cash as opposed to 2.5% cash back. So that's the base of comparison I'm going to use. So if I committed to always using my 2x Everywhere card, whatever it might be, only for point redemptions and not for cash, 3% cash back equivalent over the long-term aggregate. But I did mention earlier I'm willing to cash out penny points from time to time, which I am. So then the question is, how often am I claiming it at penny points where I'm only getting 1 cent per point versus how much am I using it for transfer partners or travel portals or whatevers where I'm getting 1.5 cents per point. Now, if we assume with the math it's half and half, I think that averages out to 2.5% cashback equivalent on your Signify, your Double Cash, your Venture X, your Blue Business Plus, right? Because if half the time I'm getting the equivalent of 3% cash back when I use it with points, and half the time I'm getting the equivalent of just a penny per point, which would be 2% cash back whenever I use one of those everywhere else cards, then the average of 2 and 3, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, that average is 2.5. Well, hey, that's exactly the same as the Smartly. So yeah, for the way I value points on the aggregate at 1.5 cents per point, if I'm cashing out more than half the time, then yes, I should get the Smartly card. If I'm cashing out less than half the time, then no, it's not worth using the Smartly card, and I should just keep on using the 2x everywhere card, whatever that may be, on all of my purchases. So, based on everything I've said so far, at that lowest tier, that $5,000 on-hand tier with US Bank, Smartly card would not be worth it for me. Now, I suppose you could make a more advanced argument that, well, Doug, just statistically, mathematically, you should have both. You should have your Smartly card at 2.5% cash back, and you should have your everywhere else card at, the equivalent of 3% cash back on everything based on how you're valuing points, and somehow project or figure out when you think you need a stockpile of cash, and when you need that stockpile of cash, use the Smartly card. When you don't, use your favorite points card, your Venture X, your Signify, your Double Cash, whatever. Don't have a Double Cash, but you get what I'm saying. And on those, average 3% equivalent. That way, instead of averaging 2 and 3, you're averaging 2.5 and 3. And I suppose that argument is technically sound. It's mathematically sound. But there's a couple thoughts I have that I think practically make the juice just not worth the squeeze. First of all, most of the time I'm accruing the bulk of my points through sign-up bonuses, referrals, or some sort of categories. Everything else really doesn't earn me all that much. So if I were to just guess, I don't have a budget in front of me, I'm in the car, but I'm probably spending around, on the high end, $10,000 a year on my everything else category. Those are times I can't use mobile wallet, I can't use dining, I can't use gas, I can't use grocery. And frankly, I often find creative ways to do that anyhow, like go to a gas station and buy a gift card for the retailer and get the gas modifier or something like that, or use tap to pay at my dentist on the Altitude Reserve and get at least, the 4.5 equivalent on that. So it doesn't come up that often, and even of the $10,000 a year that qualifies as everything else, probably at least $3,000 of that is going towards some card where I don't have a category bonus, but I'm working on a sign-up bonus. So realistically, probably more like $5,000 to $7,000 a year of true everything else spend, where it's not a category, it's not tap to pay, it's not mobile wallet, and it's not something where I'm working on a sign-up bonus. So, $7,000 a year, if I'm getting the equivalent of 2x, that's 14,000 points. If I was getting the equivalent of 3x, that's 21,000 points. So, we're talking, and really it's just the 2.5, so that'd be what, like 17.5, something like that. We're talking at most 3,000 or 4,000 points a year. You know, 40, 50, 60 bucks a year in extra value. Is that really worth opening a whole nother card and establishing a whole nother relationship for? I'd say probably not. And then the second thing I've already kind of alluded to is, you know, that's one more card to manage, that's one more hard pull, that's one more ding against Chase 524. I just don't think for me it really is going to amount to that big of a hill of beans. You know, there's almost like the points per minute of effort ratio, and I don't know how to measure that, but whatever it is, I don't think it stacks up if I'm going to save $40, $50, $60 a year by opening this one card that doesn't even have a sign-up bonus. Now, if the Smartly had even like a $250 sign-up bonus, I think it'd be a lot more compelling. I would be a lot more willing to blow a 524 spot and a hard pull on that, but nah, dog, I'm not feeling it. Let me know your thoughts. This is mental math. First of all, if I made a mathematical calculation error, please let me know. And secondly, just your comments in general. What do you think about the Smartly card at the 2.5% level? Is it even worth it? I'm not even sure it's worth it at the 4% level after watching the interview that Matt Clausen did with Spaithco. That one was a banger, so catch that if you haven't already. That's all I have. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you're not already a member, consider becoming a channel member. There's 32 other members-only videos, even more nerdy than this, more sensitive than this, you can only get access to as a channel member. And as always, may your spending be frugal, and may your points be plenteous. Thanks.